Hello, everybody, and welcome to Greet the Week. I'm Jan Moray. I'm here with my co-host, Mona Duncan, and we've got a couple of guests on as well today. And our topic for the day is happiness as a force of nature. So what do you mean by that, a force of nature?
Well, I heard that the other day, and I thought, oh, wow, it's an organic force of nature, and that whenever we're in harmony with it, it results in bliss. And I thought, wow, that sounds like just the topic to discuss, especially since we are also exploring choice theory that happens to be the universal system for empowering individuals and having happy relationships. So I thought we would just talk a little bit more about that today. And what does it mean to, if something is organic, and it's that organic force of nature that's within us that leads to bliss, how do we go about doing that? And I think maybe one of the ways would be to be your own person, would be to know who you are.
Your own person.
Yeah, be comfortable in your own skin.
Okay.
That, if you play pickleball or not, it might be something
that you enjoy, that put a smile on your face.
Yeah, be something worth finding out about, and if it's for you, go for it. If it's not, that's okay too, but it doesn't make you less than or better than either way.
Yes, it does.
Oh, it does. Depending on what point of view, huh? So I thought we would just start off with Dr. Glasser's own definition of what happiness is. And if it's organic within us, as we can learn how to seed it and help it to grow, And I like the fact that he gave four qualifiers for a happy life. And 3 of those qualifiers are things that we do. And one of those qualifiers is something that we do not do. And I find that very interesting. So happiness is, 1, getting along well with those near and dear to you. I'm going to read them to you, and then we'll go back and discuss them.
Okay. All right.
Getting along well with those near and dear to you. 2, I mean, he just had them written out, and I put them in the 1, 2, 3 order. Anyway, enjoying the life you are choosing to live. And it's realizing that we are choosing the life we're living.
Yeah.
Doing something with your life that you feel is worthwhile. Am I contributing to planet Earth? Am I contributing to others? You feel it's worthwhile. And then the 4th one, which is not doing anything that would deprive another person for a chance for happiness. And so, getting along well with those near and dear to you. Let's kind of discuss that. Who are those that are near and dear to you?
Our families, our close friends,
Co-workers,
co-workers,
neighbors.
There's
Sometimes
a lot of people in our lives.
We do indeed. Sometimes I get some feedback on neighbors or co-workers. Well, you're all there together, but the more you can see them and the more you can of your own organic nature choose to embrace them as being near and dear to you. Because, if you didn't all work together, you might not have a job.
Yeah, right.
See them as being near dear to you. That definitely will contribute to your well-being, which contributes to happiness, which takes us to bliss.
Yeah.
And then enjoying the life you are choosing to live.
Well, let's talk some more about enjoying those close to you. Because I was at an event some time ago, and there was one family there. It just seemed very unhappy with each other, and I felt bad for them.
Right.
Here they were, the parents and the children and then they were adult children that just they had frowns on their face, and it was a joyous occasion where you thought they would have been happy, but they just seemed like they weren't enjoying the situation. I don't know what happened or what was going on, but it's things like that. When you're at a celebration, can you put aside all of those things that are not going well for you? Well, somebody said, they were upset about one of the somebody said something to the other, and it's like, well, okay, but here you're celebrating this joyous occasion. So can we put that aside and take advantage of the situation where it's a great time for us to be together and bond and just enjoy this happy occasion, instead of bringing up the things that I'm mad about this morning about something that you said.
Exactly. And that goes back to that organically. As we choose to do that within ourselves, then we allow the good things to rise.
Right.
So that they begin to take over.
Right. Because that's a missed opportunity if you don't. And then you miss an opportunity to feel good and to be happy, because you're still dwelling on something else that happened that wasn't related to this special event.
Right. And it may have been a deal, but it doesn't have to be a deal breaker. We can put it aside. And maybe, if it is necessary, it's part of being true to yourself, learning to be, that if it needs to be settled, do it at a time when it is more appropriate to settle it.
Right. But I think, too, is to not let those opportunities to feel good and to be happy pass you by.
Exactly. Be aware of them. Be looking for them.
Yes.
And then, even if they're not all that grand, how can I infuse a little bit in there that would make them even more pleasant?
Right.
Which goes kind of hand in hand with looking at Dr. Glasser's definition of what mental health is. And so if we're not happy, then we're maybe borrowing or, bordering on being unhappy, or at least being not so content. So maybe we need to look and see what our mental state is like. And that we are mentally healthy and mentally happy whenever we enjoy most of the people that we're with, especially family, and especially celebrating special occasions. That we can kind of, and when you are willing, or more than willing, when you're not only willing, but sometimes you have to give yourself that little extra oomph to be more than willing to help an unhappy family member or a colleague or someone, to feel better, or to turn that frown into a smile or something, to kind of, that you lead more of a tension-free life. And certainly if we're kind of battling something that's there, that it's in the air and we can see it and even feel it, even though we don't really know what it is, as in you're observing, the difficulty, it's palpable. But we're mentally healthy, and we're certainly bordering on organic happiness when we are willing to live that tension-free life, to not hold on to it, to laugh a lot, to rarely suffer the aches and pains that it's not top that testimony. Well, you just think you're sick. Let me tell you how sick I am.
Right.
It's to begin to kind of downplay it as opposed to making it bigger than it really is. And some of those things are just an unavoidable part of life, as you're talking about whatever happened beforehand that kind of put that little damper on their happiness at the celebration. It may need to be settled, but it may need to be, and I hesitate to use the word overlooked. Well, actually, I want to use the word overlooked as opposed to ignore. Okay. Sometimes it's, just ignore it for right now. But again, that ignoring has such a attitude to it that it's real off-putting. Yeah. But we can choose to overlook it for the good of the whole.
Yeah, or just put it aside for now. We'll get back to it later, but for right now, we're going to put it aside, and we'll deal with that issue at another time.
Unless it resolves itself, and then we'll let it be self-resolving.
Yeah.
So, and then also enjoying the life that you are choosing to live. Yeah. And,
I think it's a hard one for some people to accept, that I'm choosing this life. This life is happening to me. But really, your choices determine what happens in your life and how your life turns out.
To a large degree, it does. With my daughter, and I said, whenever they were thinking about moving away, and I had told her that it was in her life contract that they couldn't get too far away from us. But anyway, we were talking about it. I said, you didn't choose us. At least it doesn't seem that way in this this realm of life, that it was kind of an organic thing that brought you into being our daughter. But there's those that we choose, but even though we choose them by chance, I mean, they're our parents, they're our brothers and sisters and cousins and all that kind of stuff, we can choose to be okay with who they are and the fact that we are related rather than disliking. But the fact that you chose your husband, I mean, to me, that choice over and above overcomes the natural inclination of choices. You know, you can choose to always respect your parents and keep in contact with them and not move too far away.
Right.
But for the good of the whole, you know, it's time to leave and cleave. And that choosing the life that you're choosing to live. And even if you do move, even if you don't move, even if you, whatever, you know, to a large degree, there is a choice there. And when we can be aware of that, and then, well, can I choose I'm choosing my attitude.
Yeah.
So therefore, in choosing my attitude, is that helping me to enjoy the life I'm choosing to live, even though it may have a little hook and crook to it. You know, even though it may have been some obligations made or some promises made that I'm trying to keep. Am I choosing to live within those guidelines? And then doing something with your life that you feel is important. And if what you're doing doesn't bring some joy to you or meaningfulness, is it bringing joy or meaningfulness to someone else? And if not, maybe that's kind of why I'm not being happy.
Right.
So enjoying. And that kind of takes us back to that pleasure-pain syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That because we want the pleasure, we want the good times, we want the happiness, we want the successes, that we have a tendency to go for those, realizing or not realizing that they, in and of themselves, bring some pain. And that sometimes we get tired, and because we're tired, we want that pain to go away, and so we'll take something that'll give us a little buzz because we want that happiness. And sometimes it sets us up. It just sets us up. And it seemed like it was happiness. Oh, well, that would be a fun thing to do, but it, you know, it made us sick. It hurt our feelings. It wasn't good for us. And we turned to something that'll make us feel good.
Yeah, I think about the things that we do during the day that we have to do, like cooking. And I don't particularly enjoy cooking, but I cook a lot. And but I do get some satisfaction out of it because we have plenty of food. I don't have to worry about, oh, there's nothing in the refrigerator. And so that is where the pleasure comes, or the happiness comes, is that knowing that there's always food around. And I think, you know, there's a lot of things in our lives that we don't really enjoy doing, and so we put aside and we do things that we enjoy better, like sitting in front of the TV or whatever we do, listening, you know, doing whatever. And but we put aside the things that we really need to do to help us to live better and to be healthier, or exercise, or, you know, or eat right. And they're not as fun, and they don't sound very pleasurable, but in the end, there's a lot to be gained from that. So how do you get people to take care of themselves and to do things that seem like a chore and seem like they're a lot of work, but, you know, seeing with their other choices just to sit around, which one in the end is going to help them to feel better?
Right. And the thing of it is because we want the pleasure pain, and often we want the pleasure, not the pain, and often we don't want to take responsibility for either one. That then we get into the really unhappiness by blaming others.
Yeah.
You know, and said, well, but this TV program was so good. I got so involved in it. Or, you know,
Yeah.
and it's so, the excuses that we use are so puny. But we make them into being something that really, as though I didn't have any say-so over it. And we have more say-so over it than we give ourselves credit for. Yeah. And it's just realizing that we have been empowered with power power to do, power to make choices, power to follow through. And we just get lazy. And I'm preaching to me as much as I am to anyone else. That I want to live what I teach. And so therefore I keep on teaching it so that I can be more accountable to myself for, well, are you just spouting off, or is there any truth to this?
Right. Are you walking the talk?
Yeah. And then, that fourth qualifier with Dr. Glasser is something we do not do, and that is not doing anything that would deprive another person for their chance for happiness.
Right.
And so back to the little example that you were giving, the fact that someone was at a celebration with kind of a glum face, how is that depriving the one that's having the celebration? How is that contributing to their lack of happiness and enjoying because of the way you're acting?
Right.
We are depriving them. Be happy for them. Right. There may be some guidelines you need to get, but whatever it is, celebrate the celebration. Because back to that pleasure pain, whenever we are depriving someone else of happiness, and we can do that in little minute ways. I was reading in one of the Chicken Soups for the Soul about this dad that his daughters would ask him for something, and his answer, his go-to answer was just always no. No. And usually he would change his mind and give it in,
eventually.
Allow them to do whatever they want. But his go-to answer was no. And he began to realize on his own that he was really pushing his daughters away. They still were asking for a lot of stuff, but they didn't have that good, healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. And he determined right up front that he was going to always say yes, unless it was he was not going to just put them off. He was not going to be deliberately off-putting. And so how that he would say, let me think about it and I'll get back with you. And then he would.
Yeah.
Rather than just that automatic no, and then them having to, or they thinking they had to persuade him that what they were wanting was a good idea for the budget for them, for the whatever. And but whenever we do something that deprives another of happiness, it leads to addictions, violence, unloving sex, control, mental health issues. Because we cannot harm someone else without harming ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because we're all connected. And if we want to be that organically happy person, that with spurts that leads to bliss, then we learn to get along and keep our mental state healthy by enjoying the life and having no trouble accepting no other people as they are. Maybe a little trouble.
That's a hard thing to do.
Do what?
It's a hard thing to do sometimes, is to accept people just the way they are, because especially when they're real close to us with our kids, because we think we know what's best for them and what we want them to be, and they have their own life to live and have their own personalities and things that they want to do, and it's hard sometimes to accept that this child is going to be very different from the way I would do it, but that's okay. And this child has to learn from experience. This child, you can't give him any advice or tell him what possible consequences are. He's got to figure it out on his own.
Yeah.
And something, it's hard to stand back and just let him do it, but
Dr. Glasser was so bold as to say that it rarely occurs to you to criticize or try to change someone else. I haven't gotten to the point where it rarely occurs to me to criticize, but I have gotten a lot closer to getting to not verbalizing that criticism,
right,
and to even dismissing it. That's what's the big deal. So they're acting like a jerk, that if we have differences, that if there's a problem to be worked out, try to work it out amicably without causing more problems. And then if you can't, and if it's just too, just walk away. Don't stomp away, but walk away. Don't engage. Don't. And then to use our creativity, because we have been gifted with such creativity. And I noticed something on the little chart the other day that I had not noticed before. And well, actually, Sharon pointed out to me in looking at one of a talk that she's getting ready to give, how that whenever on the chart, and we're looking at the exhaust or whatever it is that comes out the back of the chart that kind of propels us to go on, that on the effective way and on the ineffective way, right in the middle is where the idea has been organized. That somewhere in our discomfort, in our wanting things to be more effective, or wanting to overcome their ineffectiveness, that we come up with something that creatively that organizes it. And then we really get a little extra energy spurt there, and we go with it. The thing of it is that sometimes it's that organization that we organized within ourselves is to yell, scream, and holler, as opposed to choose to walk away and let nature, let life take its organic consequences, rather than pointing out this is where you're headed, not that you don't ever care enough. I like to call it carefronting instead of confronting. I care enough about you, about the situation, about our relationship, whatever. I want to confront this issue.
Yeah.
But always realizing you're in the driver's seat, and whatever, you make the final decision.
Right.
That
I think that point needs to be brought out, is that when somebody tells you something, and does it in a nice way, just giving you information of something that you hadn't really realized before, look at it as a gift, because they didn't have to tell you, and that they could just walk away and act like no big deal. That's just the way Mona is, and just gonna let it go.
That's right.
Not Mona.
There she is again.
but they took the time and the effort to say, hey, when you do this is the way it comes across, and you may not realize that, and so but you don't have to accept it. You can say, okay, well, thank you very much, but I disagree with you, but that's okay. But they're really trying to be helpful.
Yeah, and that goes back to our attitude. If we can receive it as being helpful, and then kind of think about it, because maybe there is a little truth to it. I just don't want to hear it.
Right. Oh yeah. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to hear that.
And so sometimes, it's just like counseling or coaching. It happens afterward, whenever they're thinking about what someone said.
Right.
And then also the person that you want to criticize, you say, well, that's the way they are. And accepting doesn't mean approving. No, and I accept them as they are. And if they're making an idiot of themselves, maybe they can see it. And if not, I have compassion for them. That we're hurting ourselves. And so even in those times when, we are not so happy, nobody's always happy. It is realizing that the sun will come up tomorrow, because that's one of the patterns. It just keeps on happening. And with a little bit of sleep, even if it isn't a lot, there's going to be things that happen internally, because when we go to sleep, our body really goes to work.
It does.
And it's correcting, and it's sorting. As a matter of fact, it's taking no wonder we have such weird dreams. It's because our body is trying to make sense of all the thoughts and conflicts and everything that we've come up with all the time. And it's trying to sort it. And it may take that thing that someone said to you that you didn't want to hear, and all of a sudden you think, wait a minute, what was that?
Yeah. And why did I get so upset about that?
Yeah. And so What are some of those things that help us to stay in that unhappy lane? Well, probably some of the disconnecting habits would have to be in there.
Right.
That keeps us not only in disconnecting from getting along with those near and dear to us, but it also keeps us from having a good relationship with ourselves. If we're being, not only critical to us, but if we're being critical to them. And if we're
And I think another thing with happiness is you have to have the mindset that you are in control of how happy you are. Not that you can just change from being upset one minute to being happy the next minute, but there are things that you can do to change that instead of turning it around that, oh, woe is me, all these terrible things happen to me. It's like, well, yeah, you've had a rough life and you've had a lot of bad breaks, but you can respond to whatever happened to you in a different way than the way you were responding before. And if you really want to be happy, then what can you do? What can you change? It has to start with you. Nobody outside there can do it for you. It has to start within.
right. They contribute to, but
Yeah.
it's a do-it-yourself job.
It is. Absolutely. And it's tough because we want other people to change. We want other people to be nicer to us, to give us a break, understand where we're coming from, to agree with what we're saying, but they may not. That's just life.
That is
We have
just
to be okay with it. And are we okay enough with ourselves that we can accept that they don't agree with it? But hey, we're agreeing to disagree here.
right. And that disagreeing really doesn't take anything away from you.
No.
Just like the agreeing really doesn't add anything to it.
Sometimes
we want to take a poll, and if enough people agree with us, then I must be right.
Right.
That's not the way life works. And it's the fact that, may have all the people in life there's a lot of triads in life, 3 meals a day and body, soul, and spirit, mind, will, and emotion. I mean, just a lot of threes. And anyway, that supposedly anyone you meet for the first time, there's either going to be kind of that automatic connectedness or an automatic something about, that I don't like that person, just kind of something, or just que sera, so what? You're part of one of the people on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And so if we can just begin to realize that of all the people that I know and associate with, there are going to be those that I'm more drawn to, those that I'm more repelled to, and those that are just there because they're there. And if we cannot take either of them so personally.
Yeah.
But to take it lightly, realizing that with attitudes and emotions and circumstances as they are, that one minute it can be this way and the next minute it can be another way. But we are still who we are, and how will we handle it? That no matter what it is what it is. So what? Now what? How will I handle it?
Right. What am I going to do about it now?
Yeah. Will I be gracious? Will I be ungracious?
Yeah.
Will I be kind? Will I be not so kind?
Yeah.
Will I be kicking them out? And if I do kick them out, how am I harming me? Because it's hard to hurt someone else without hurting ourselves.
Could you repeat those 4 things again? I'm missing the second one. The 4 things that Glasser said.
Getting along well with those near and dear to you.
Yeah.
Enjoying the life you are choosing to live.
Okay.
Doing something with your life you feel is worthwhile.
Yeah.
And then not doing anything to deprive another for a chance for happiness. And whenever we do that, it sets up within us, because We can't harm others without harming ourselves. And we don't want that harm, so we want some kind of pleasure. It sets us up for mental imbalance, unhappiness, violence, addictions, and unloving sex. We never give up on sex. We never give up on the pleasure. Never, never, never. Even whenever those pleasurable things in the long run harm us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good thoughts for today. I see we're at the end of our time. So good discussion. And for everyone who's watching this later, thank you for watching. And just to know that next week's broadcast will be at a different Zoom account because I will not be here. Mona will be doing this on
And
her
so
own.
hold on a second.
I've got the number right here.
Okay, good.
The Zoom meeting ID for the next 2 weeks is 908-503-0696.
Is that going to be linked in the email you usually send?
Well, Howard, I didn't. Well, let me go ahead and turn off the recording, then I'll hang on.
Okay.
Okay, so just hang on to that. Okay, so goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you soon.